Hi, and welcome to the second devblog of the Succy project. So last time I talked about setting up character movement and utilizing and modifying the Unity starter asset input. Today I thought I would take and showcase something entirely new that I've created from scratch. And one of the essential ingredients of any third-person shooter is the ability to shoot, or in our case, to cast spells. So how about them apples, as they say? So this is currently the most basic spell that I put in that you get when you start. It doesn't utilize ammo, you have infinite casts, and once I get the damage properly set up, it will deal rather low damage. Now, already at the start here, you may have noticed these things floating around, and let's walk on this one and pick it up. And now it disappeared, and what happens when we attack? Ooh, new spell. But as you can see, I didn't have much ammo, and if you might have guessed that that's what these crystals are. So I walk over them, my ammo replenishes, and I can go back to casting again. Now, of course, being able to attack is good and all, but what's the point in attacking if you can't damage things or be damaged? Or should I say hurt? So let's just look at this ordinary harmless little fire here and see what happens when we go stand in it. As you can see, I'm taking damage, and the character is both screaming and recoiling in pain as the screen takes and flashes red each time she takes damage. So let's get out of the fire, and if you probably might have guessed, this is a health pickup that is floating around. We walk on, and we have replenished some health. And nothing too exciting there, that's pretty much it. Alrighty, so now we're back in the Unity editor, and now if you're interested and want to stick around, we're going to have a bit of a look at the technical stuff. For starters, I would like to say that for this project, I have chosen a modular approach, putting emphasis on event-driven programming along with the composition. And I was very much inspired by Ryan Hippel's speech at Unite Austin 2017. And one of the things I have implemented here is his variable classes, his scriptable object variable classes, to be able to share and set data. And in this particular case here, I'm even throwing in a bit of a data-driven approach by collecting all the variables for weapons and character stats in one place, so I can just go in and tweak them later. But yeah, let's look at how this is used. So if we start with the health component that I created, you see there's a number of variables here that are directly connected to those scriptable objects. I have max health, I have a current health, and the reason I output that is so that I can use it then with the to share information with the UI. And I also have something called an overkill threshold, which essentially means if you hit an enemy with more than enough damage to kill them by a certain magnitude, it will invoke an overkill event. And that I will be able to use for things later, like rigging up that the enemies explode into gibs if you hit them with the equivalent of a rocket or something like that. And then what happens here is you see I have the list of events here. I have on healed, on damaged, and on death. And with this, I can rig up all kinds of animation feedback, and I can activate, like on death here, I can deactivate player input and so forth. It basically makes it very easy to prototype and architect different things, try out connecting different effects without having to write explicit object references in the code. And damaging basically happens by basically anything that does damage looks for this script, damageable, which means that and then that refers back to the assigned health component. And some might have that you may have the health as a required component, but I prefer not to, because this lets me basically set colliders for the character or enemies or whatever on any kind of layer, and then just slap on the damageable, and then they will all refer to the same health pool. And here you also see a variable for armor, which I haven't quite properly implemented yet. Now, of course, the more interesting part of this is you will most likely find is the weapon manager, or the combat system as a whole. And the weapon manager is rather simple. It maintains a list of the weapons, an inventory of weapons, and it allows you to cycle through the weapons, and it also tries to fire the weapon that has the current index. So this is the weapon controller script, and it is a very simple system with a high degree of abstraction. That is, it actually knows nothing about implementing any kind of attacks or even how to fire projectiles. It just simply knows how to invoke different events, like on ready, ammo depleted, on try fired, on fired. And to give myself a bit of an extra control about syncing attacks and animations, I have created the attack profile class. And essentially it stores a trigger name and a variable, which I then use to scale the attack animation, and a variable curve, which allows me then to tweak the animations in after the fact without having to go in and edit every single animation. I can then adjust the timing so that when the projectile instantiates, the animation is in the right position. And I can then tweak the whole cycle. So if I have an animation that has a very slow cast animation, I can speed up the beginning of the cast and then slow it down to normal towards the end, when the character has cast her spell and she is now just relaxing her arm after the cast. And then basically I have an event here on trigger, which is when then the animation starts. And in this case here, I have that it then spawns actually the effect of the energy trail. And then on attack, I take and actually shut that off. And the reason for that is essentially supposed to look like the projectile has left the hand. And then actual firing of the projectile is handled then by a game object pool spawner class, which then instantiates from a pre-made pool. And by using this creation of mine, the projectile pool, I can actually share the same pool between multiple objects or enemies and characters in a scene. So yeah, one last thing I guess to look at is the actual pickups. And here you will actually see how I work with the composition. I have actually an abstract base class simply called pickup, from which implementing classes like pickup, ammo inherits. And they all do their own thing, like the ammo looks for the ammo manager and then looks for what ammo type is and then checks if it's full or not, etc., etc. And then when pickup happens, I have an on pickup event that then does things like shuts off the collider and disables the graphical element, tells the particle system to stop. And in cases where I want ammo to respawn, I actually have a special timed event class. And then the timed event class, once invoked, will then trigger the on event triggered event. It's events within events. Now, I am aware that this is not always the best approach. There is a risk that one ends up in event and callback hell, which is why I try to restrict things to basically wherever it actually makes sense and not try to break things down too little. And as you may have also noticed, the ammo crystals and the pickups, they spin and bob up and down. And for that, I have two other components, which is the transform rotator, which just simply rotates it at a fixed speed with a particular angular velocity. And I have the transform oscillator, which allows me to set a sine wave frequency to generate the smooth bobbing up and down. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you found it interesting. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more in the future. And thanks for watching.